Respect, condom use, and the integrative model. Finn Rhodes A.E. Judith A. Stein A.E. Martin Fishbein A.E. Rise B. Goldstein A.E. Mary Jane Rutherham Boris. Published online, February 24th, 2007. Springer Science plus Business Media, LLC 2007. Abstract: the integrative model of behavioral prediction, IM, provides guidelines for the development of successful HIV/STD interventions. Yet few HIV prevention programs have identified which components of the IM have been associated with successful behavioral outcomes. Using structural equation modeling, this study examines in detail how components of the IM assessed prior to and immediately after the delivery of an intervention are associated with reported condom use 3 months later among participants in Project Respect, a multi-site randomized controlled trial testing HIV/STD risk reduction strategies among clients attending public health clinics for sexually transmitted diseases. Overall, the IM predicts condom use at 3 months. There were, however, variations in the relative contribution of differing IM components as a function of gender and type of sexual partner, as well as the type of intervention the participant had received. Keywords: condom use, theory of reasoned action, social cognitive theory, health belief model, HIV. Introduction. A large number of HIV prevention programs have successfully reduced HIV risk among heterosexuals, Rutherham Boris, Cantwell, and Newman, 2000. Project Respect is one such successful intervention. In Project Respect, 5,758 patients recruited at 5 public health clinics, Baltimore, Maryland, Denver, Colorado, Long Beach, California, Newark, New Jersey, and San Francisco, California, for sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, were randomized to one of 4 face-to-face intervention conditions. 1. A 4-session enhanced counseling condition that was based on an integrative model, IM, Fishbein, 2000, Institute of Medicine, IOM, 2002, National Academy of Science, NAS, 2002, that incorporated variables from the theory of reasoned action, Agin and Fishbein, 1980, Fishbein, 1967, Fishbein and Agin, 1975, the health belief model, Becker, 1974, and social cognitive theory, Bandura, 1977, 1994, 1997. 2. A 2-session brief counseling condition based in part on the health belief model and social cognitive theory that reflected best current practice in HIV test counseling. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1993, 1994. Brief counseling included both cognitive and action-oriented strategies to reduce risk, and 3. 2 comparison conditions in which 5 minutes. F. Rhodes, and Department of Psychology, Emeritus, California State University, Long Beach, USA. Email, fenrhodes@earthlink.net. J. A. Stein, Department of Psychology, University of California, Los Angeles, USA. M. Fishbein Annenberg School for Communication, University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, USA. R. B. Goldstein Neuropsychiatric Institute, Center for Community Health, University of California, Los Angeles, USA. M. J. Rutherham Boris Department of Psychiatry and Biobehavioral Sciences, Neuropsychiatric Institute, Center for Community Health, University of California, Los Angeles, USA. AIDS Behalf, 2007, 11:393, 407 DOI 10.1007/S10461-007-9208-9. 123. Didactic messages were delivered in 2 sessions, Kam et al., 1998a. Both the enhanced counseling and brief counseling interventions resulted in fewer incident STDs, reductions in unprotected sex acts, and increased condom use over the next 12 months, Kam et al., 1998a. The enhanced counseling condition led to a greater reduction in unprotected sex and a greater increase in condom use than did the brief counseling condition, with small but generally consistent overall differences between the 2 conditions. Several explanations are possible for the differential effectiveness of these 2 interventions. Clearly, this difference could simply reflect the fact that more than twice the dosage was delivered in enhanced counseling, 4 sessions versus 2 sessions, 200 minutes versus 40 minutes of intervention exposure. Alternatively, the enhanced counseling intervention was directed at the 3 major determinants of behavior specified by the IM, attitudes, norms, and self-efficacy, while the brief counseling intervention was directed at increased IMG perceived risk, one specific health belief, use of condoms will protect against HIV and other STDs, and self-efficacy. Although the enhanced counseling intervention activities were designed to influence the theoretical components of the IM, the activities may not have impacted these components effectively. On the other hand, it is possible that the activities in the brief counseling condition may have influenced the major variables of the IM, perhaps even exerting a large influence on these factors, even though the activities had not been initially designed to change all of these variables. Given these possibilities, we examined 1. If the components of the IM were related to participants' condom use across intervention condition, and 2. How risk behaviors in condom use among participants in each intervention were related to the components of the IM over 3 months. The IM was developed following a NIMSPON SWORD workshop designed to consider the similarities and differences among several behavioral theories in order to identify a critical set of variables that serve as key determinants of behavior and behavior change. Fishbein et al., 2001. Based primarily on the theory of reasoned action and the theory of planned behavior, Agin, 1991, Agin and Fishbein, 1980, Fishbein, 1967, Fishbein and Agin, 1975, as well as on Bandura's, 1977, 1994, 1997, Social Cognitive Theory and the Health Belief Model, Becker, 1974. The IM is a general theory of behavioral prediction that is assumed to be applicable to the understanding of any given behavior. See Fishbein, 2000, Fishbein and Iser, 2003, IOM, 2002, NAS, 2002. Consistent with the theories of reasoned action and planned behavior, the IM hypothesizes that intentions are the primary determinants of behavior. In turn, intentions are viewed as a function of 3 proximal determinants. A. Attitudes, determined by beliefs about positive and negative consequences of perform ing the target behavior. B. Perceived expectations of peers, significant other individuals, and institutions, subjective norms. And C. Perceived self-efficacy. The goal of Project Respect was to increase the likelihood that a male condom would always be used for vaginal sex with main and casual partners. Activities were designed to improve perceived self-efficacy toward condom use, to encourage positive attitudes towards always using condoms, and to set expectations that condom use is normative among partners and friends/acquaintances. For example, facilitators were encouraged to reward participants for any reported condom use. Facilitators also had participants identify specific friends who were likely to endorse condom use. Pre-printed cards with statements advocating the use of condoms were used by facilitators to try to change negative outcome beliefs and strengthen existing positive beliefs about the benefits of condom use. The set of IM variables influenced by these activities was anticipated to be associated with condom use. Structural equation modeling with latent variables, Bettler, 2006, was used to examine associations that existed at the time of recruitment as well as those that followed the delivery of the intervention, and whether the components were differentially associated with different intervention conditions. The context of the sexual encounter was expected to influence the relative importance of the IM variables associated with condom use. For instance, gender and type of sexual encounter are contextual factors likely to influence condom use dramatically. John and Fishbein, 1993, Corby and Wolitsky, 1996, Dorfman, Dirish and Cohen, 1992, Hogg, Terry, and White, 1995. Terry, Galligan, and Conway, 1993, Weiss, Weston, and Quirinali, 1993. Women's perceptions of their abelai ties to influence their partners may be a key factor in condom use. In contrast, men's attitudes toward condom use may be more important than their perceived ability to use them. Given the long history of gender-based theories of social behavior, Gilligan, 1982, Maccabee and Jacklin, 1987, research indicating gender differences in sexual risk acts, Catania et al., 2001, Cubbins and Tanfer, 2000, Condom Use Self-Efficacy, Murphy et al., 2001, and the Determinants of Risk Acts, National Institute of Mental Health, NIM, Multisite HIV Prevention Trial Group, 2002, separate models were examined for males and females. 123. 394 AIDS Behalf, 2007, 11:393, 407. In addition to gender, the type of sexual partner influences condom use. 2 types of partnerships have been identified: main partners, i.e., regular partners, and ongoing partnership, and casual partners. Examples abound of subgroups who have reported using condoms with casual partners, but not main partners: sex workers, Corby, Wolitsky, Thornton Johnson, and Tanner, 1991, McKegney, 1994, adolescents, Sonnenstein, Plett, and Koo, 1989, gay men, Catania, Coates, and Kegels, 1994, and heterosexuals, Anderson, Wilson, Dahl, Jones, and Barker, 1999, Sage et al., 2002. Given the consistency with which these differences are observed, we examined separately how IM components predicted condom use for men and women with both main and casual partners. Methods. A detailed description of subject selection and intervention procedures followed in the Project Respect randomized clinical trial appears elsewhere. Kam et al., 1998a, Kam et al., 1998b. In the present study, data from a subset of Respect subjects assigned to the enhanced counseling, N equals 1,438, brief counsel ing, N equals 1,447, and didactic message, N equals 1,443, conditions were analyzed. The fourth condition, a Hawthorne condition, N equals 1,430, was identical to the didactic condition but did not include follow-up interviews of participants. Subsample selection and model development. Because our outcome measure was reported condom use for vaginal sex in the past 3 months, assessed at 3 months following delivery of the intervention, we restricted our sample to individuals who had engaged in vaginal intercourse during that period of time. Although abstinence is certainly a form of safe behavior, and may in some instances reflect the non-availability of condoms rather than lack of opportunity for sex, we defined our outcome more narrowly in order to focus on the particular behavior that was the explicit focus of the Respect intervention. The IM was tested between baseline and 3-month follow-up and between immediate follow-up and 3-month follow-up in separate models for those participants who reported casual partners and for those who had main partners exclusively. To avoid using the same participants twice in assessing behaviors among those with main partners and those who reported casual partners, we divided the samples into participants who reported having sexual relations with casual partners, and possibly, but not necessarily with main partners, at initial and follow-up assessments, and those who reported only main partners at both assessments. The baseline to 3-month longitudinal analysis samples and the immediate follow-up to 3-month longitudinal analysis samples PRI merely consist of the same people. Sample sizes vary slightly depending on survey participation rates and survey items presented to the participants and are reported below in the individual analyses. We divided the main partner sample by gender. Preliminary multi-sample comparisons with appropriate invariance constraints indicated similar factor structures for the males and females with casual partners, so we combined the male and female samples for the casual partner analysis at both baseline and immediate follow-up. Sample sizes for the females with casual partners were too small to have separate analyses. There were thus 6 principal analyses, 3 analyses used baseline and 3-month outcome data, men with main partners, women with main partners, and men and women with casual partners, and the other 3 analyses used the immediate follow-up and 3-month outcome data in similar configurations. In the analyses using the baseline data as predictors, 3-month condom use was predicted by elements of the theoretical model and directly by the type of intervention the participant had experienced. In the analyses using immediate follow-up data, intervention status was used as a predictor of the targeted constructs of the IM, which in turn were used as predictors of the outcome, 3-month condom use. The impact of the intervention on elements of the IM could thus be assessed. Indirect effects of the intervention on the outcome could also be evaluated. Measures. The latent variables were primarily based on responses to multi-item scales presented at baseline and again during the immediate follow-up to the intervention. These scales were hypothesized and designed a priori to reflect and represent the major constructs of the IM. In some cases, to reduce the number of measured indicators, Bettler and Wu, 1995, Little, Cunningham, Shahar, and Whitteman, 2002, scales with numerous items were factor analyzed using maximum likelihood estimation, and the items were subsequently combined into meaningful composites or parcels. Self-efficacy beliefs. This construct was represented by 5 indicators of how certain participants were that they could use condoms, men, or that they could get their partners to. 123. AIDS we have, 2007, 11:393, 407, 395. Use condoms, women, under different conditions. Items ranged from 0 to 10 and included 1. The mean of 2 items that assessed whether the participant could use or get a partner to use a condom when the partner was high on drugs or alcohol, and whether the participant could use or get a partner to use a condom if the participant was drinking or using drugs. 2. The mean of 2 items concerning condom use when the partner was sexually excited, and when the participant was sexually excited, plus individual items measuring 3. When the partner did not feel like using a condom. 4. How sure the participant was he or she could avoid having sex if no condom was available, and 5. When any difficulty arose. Positive behavioral beliefs. This construct asked respondents to indicate the strength of their beliefs that always using a condom would lead to positive consequences on a 5-point, strongly disagree to strongly agree, scale. Items included 1. The mean of 2 items concerning protection of self from AIDS and protection of partner from AIDS. 2. The mean of 2 items concerning protection of self from STDs and protection of partner from STDs. 3. The mean of 3 items concerning responsibility, feeling good, and less worry. 4. A single item, it would make you feel cleaner. And 5. A single item, it would show your partner that you care. Negative behavioral beliefs. This construct contained beliefs about negative outcomes that were reverse scored so that all items in the structural equation analysis were scored in the same, positive direction. The 5 indicators included 1. The mean of 3 items concerning beliefs that always using condoms would anger the partner, make the partner suspicious, and make the partner think he or she was not trusted. 2. 1 item stating that condom use is a lot of trouble. 3. The mean of 2 items about condom use decreasing sexual pleasure for oneself or one's partner. 4. 1 item. Sex would be painful or uncomfortable. And 5. The mean of 2 items about condom use ruining the mood and reducing intimacy. General normative beliefs. This construct was indicated by 5 items scaled 1 to 5 that asked whether friends, family, doctors, their church or religion, and the health department thought the client should or should not always use a condom for vaginal sex with a regular or occasional partner. Partner normative beliefs. This construct consisted of 1 item scaled 1 to 5 that asked if the partner felt the client should or should not use a condom for every occasion of vaginal sex. Behavioral attitude. This construct was represented by 7 bipolar paired items, scaled 1 to 7. Men evaluated my always using a condom. Women evaluated my getting my partner to always use a condom. The evaluated pairs included pleasant/unpleasant, wise/unwise, good/bad, difficult/easy, necessary/unnecessary, comfortable/uncomfortable, like/dislike. Subjective social norm. Represented by 1 item, scaled 1 to 7. The subjective norm evaluated whether respondents believed their important others thought they should always use or get their partners to always use a condom when they had vaginal sex. Intention to use condoms. The intention to use condoms in the next 6 months was a single item, scored from very unlikely, 1, to very likely, 7, assessing how likely it was that participants would always use condoms with their partners. Condom use. At 3-month follow-up, condom use was measured using 3 items. 1 item was based on condom use frequency in the past 30 days on a scale ranging from never, 0, to always, 4. The second item was a yes/no, 0 to 1, question that asked if a condom was used with their main or casual partner the last time the participant had vaginal sex. The third variable measured condom use percentage in the past 3 months. Intervention group randomization assignment. The 3 intervention groups, enhanced counseling, brief counseling, and didactic, were represented in the samples. Enhanced counseling and brief counsel ING were non-orthogonal dummy variables coded 0 or 1, with 1 indicating membership in that particular intervention group, Aiken, Stein, and Bettler, 1994. Randomization assignments to enhanced counseling and brief counseling were used as predictors in each model. The didactic group was used as the referent. 123. 396 AIDS Behalf, 2007, 11:393, 407. Control group. The participants in that group were coded 0 for both intervention group dummy variables. Analyses. The plausibility of the IM was assessed with latent variable analyses using the EQS structural equation modeling, SEM, program, Bettler, 2006. Such models are useful where multiple indicators can be used to describe various aspects of a theoretical phenomenon, Bettler and Stein, 1992. Covariance structure analysis compares a proposed hypothetical model with a set of actual data. The closeness of the hypothetical model to the empirical data is evaluated statistically through various goodness of fit indexes. We report chi-square values for an estimator that is appropriate when the data are multivariately Kurdos. The Satora-Bettler Robust Chi-Square Statistic, SBV2, Bettler and Dudgeon, 1996. In addition, we use an index of fit which ranges from 0 to 1, the Robust Comparative Fit Index, RCFI, Bettler and Dudgeon, 1996. Values approaching 0.95 and higher are desirable and indicate that 95% or more of the covariation in the data can be reproduced by the hypothesized model, Hu and Bettler, 1999. Because the datasets were large and chi-square values would also be large, Marsh, Bulla, and McDonald, 1988, we also report the root mean square error of approximation, RMSEA, for each model, Steiger, 1990. The RMSEA is a measure of fit for degrees of freedom, controlling for sample size, and values less than 0.06 indicate a close-fitting model, Hu and Bettler, 1999. Models. Preliminary confirmatory factor analyses. Initial confirmatory factor analyses, CFA, were performed with each hypothesized latent construct predicting its manifest indicators and all latent constructs correlating freely without imputing causality or direct tionality among them. Intervention condition variables were not included in these preliminary analyses. To improve the fit of the models, a few additional correlated error residuals were added to the models based on suggestions from the Lagrange multiplier test, LMT, if they appeared reasonable, Cho and Bettler, 1990. Because the size of both female samples with casual sex partners, baseline, n equals 207, follow-up, n equals 180, was rather small for the full structural models that included the intervention condition we performed. Multi-sample analyses assessing whether the factor structures of the men and women with casual partners were reasonably invariant and equivalent, Hoyle and Smith, 1994. If so, we could assume that they responded to the instrument in the same manner and could be combined for further analyses, Bettler, 2006, Byrne, 1994. The factor loading of each measured variable on its latent factor was constrained to equality across the groups after a baseline chi-square value was obtained for comparison. The plausibility of the equality constraints was determined with a chi-square difference test between the baseline and constrained models. As reported above, the factor structures were invariant across the gender groups, and they were thus combined for the latent variable path models. Path models. We then tested latent variable path models based on the theoretical behavioral model, consistent with expectations. The latent variables representing positive and negative behavioral beliefs predicted behavioral attitude, and societal and partner normative beliefs predicted subjective norm. Interestingly, the latent variable of self-efficacy also predicted the behavioral attitude. Although not a predicted path in the IM, this finding is consistent with social cognitive theory's assumption that self-efficacy can influence outcome expectancies. See example Bandura, 1997. It is plausible that similar findings would have been observed had we assumed association rather than causality between self-efficacy and behavioral attitude. Such findings would also be consistent with the IM. In turn, and again consistent with the IM, attitudes, subjective norm, and self-efficacy predicted intention to use condoms, and intention was a strong predictor of actual condom use. In addition, in the baseline 3-month condom use models, randomization to enhanced counseling or brief counseling was used as a direct predictor of condom use to determine differential impact of the interventions on the condom use latent variable. It was assumed that the intervention condition did not correlate with any of the baseline variables assessed before the interventions were implemented due to the careful randomization procedures that were followed. For the follow-up to 3-month condom use models, intervention group membership status was included as a predictor of the IM constructs. We thus could evaluate how the intervention condition operated on the belief system and ultimately influenced condom use through mediated indirect effects. 123. AIDS we have, 2007, 11:393, 407-397. We also used multi-sample analyses to test if there were any differences in the factor structure immediately after the intervention, and whether the factor means were significantly larger after the intervention. Our hypothesis was that structure, i.e., fundamental relations among the indicators, would not change post-intervention, but that there would be an immediate effect on levels which could be tested by latent means analyses. We contrasted the men with main partners, women with main partners, and men and women with casual partners at baseline and immediate follow-up. Results. Demographic characteristics. Demographic characteristics of the sample have been reported in detail elsewhere, Kam et al., 1998a. To summarize, 57% were male, 71% reported a previous HIV test, 63% reported a previous STD, and 31% had a current STD at enrollment. 14% reported ever having a sex partner who injected drugs, 1% reported ever having a known HIV-positive partner, and 47% reported a new sex partner in the preceding 3 months. 76% of the men and 89% of the women reported having a primary partner, while 60% of the men and 38% of the women reported having at least one non-primary partner. 38% of the sample reported no condom-protected vaginal sex acts in the preceding 3 months. Kam et al., 1998a, reported participants in the 3 intervention arms to be highly similar on all baseline characteristics, including condom use. Confirmatory factor analyses. Table 1 presents the means, standard deviations, and factor loadings of the measured variables in the preliminary CFA models for the 6 groups used in the analyses. The initial fit statistics for the CFA models all approached acceptable levels for goodness of fit. Based on suggestions from the LMT, we added 5 covariances between error residuals in each model to improve model fit. The same correlated error residuals were suggested by the LMT for each separate group and were used for each model. These supplementary relationships appear to be reasonable and do not appear to capitalize on chance relationships in the data. particularly because they were suggested by the LMT in each group individually and were the same across the groups. The added correlated error residuals were between the following variables: 1. AIDS protection and STD protection, 2. Opinion of doctors and opinion of health department, 3. Wise and good, 4. Pleasant and comfortable, and 5. Necessary and wise. Fit indexes are reported in Table 2. Baseline and immediate follow-up comparisons. As previously hypothesized, we found an invariant factor structure for the men and women with main partners at baseline and at immediate follow-up. V2 difference for men equals 27.96, DF equals 30, NS. V2 difference for women equals 41.84, DF equals 30, NS. The factor structure for those with casual partners was not factorially invariant, although only one constraint needed to be released to obtain a non-significant chi-square difference. V2 difference before releasing one constraint equals 46.79, DF equals 30, whereas the critical value at it equals 0.05 is 43.77. When we released one untenable equality constraint as reported by the LMT, the structure was invariant across the groups. V2 difference equals 29.55, DF equals 29. When we compared factor means of the IM constructs before and after the intervention, including the single item variables which were tested as if they were latent variables, we found that in almost all cases the factor means were significantly larger after the intervention. Table 3 reports the z-scores and signify Kant's levels of the mean differences pre- and post-intervention. Path models. Baseline to 3-month follow-up models. The IM was tested with the addition of enhanced counseling or brief counseling membership as further direct predictors of the outcome of condom use at 3 months. No model modification or model trimming was allowed at this point as we were testing the specified theoretical behavioral model. As depicted in figures 1 and 2 and 3, enhanced counseling membership had a significant effect on use of condoms at the 3-month follow-up for all groups. For men with main partners, brief counseling also exerted a significant effect on the outcome, p less than 0.05. Immediate follow-up to 3-month condom use models. The immediate follow-up model included the intervention condition as a possible predictor of all of the IM latent variables regarding beliefs which were assessed after the interventions. We wish to discern how the intervention ultimately exerted its effect on 123. 398 AIDS behalf, 2007, 11:393, 407. Table 1 means, standard deviations, and factor loadings of measured variables in the confirmatory factor analysis factor and measured condom use variables, main partner, women, main partner, men, casual partners, men plus women, baseline, n equals 683, immediate follow-up, n equals 660, baseline, n equals 551, immediate follow-up, n equals 678, baseline, n equals 556, immediate follow-up, 100 AIDS behalf, 2000, the outcome variables, and a condom use item means for the individual items, means for the condom use item, the outcome variables, and upon which beliefs the intervention had its greatest impact. Therefore, non-significant paths from the 2 intervention conditions to the belief variables were gradually deleted until only significant paths remained. We then were able to determine the significant indirect effects of intervention condition mediated through the belief variables on the intermediate and outcome variables. Figures 4 and 5 and 6 depict the results. Relations among the baseline IM latent variables are not depicted for readability, but they are similar to those reported in figures 1 and 2 and 3. For the males with main partners, enhanced counseling significantly enhanced positive and negative behavioral beliefs, as well as self-efficacy beliefs. Enhanced counseling also had a significant indirect effect on behavioral attitude, p less than 0.001, intention to use a condom, p less than 0.001, and condom use, p less than 0.001. For the females with main partners, both interventions significantly enhanced negative behavioral beliefs and self-efficacy, enhanced counseling, p less than 0.001, brief. Counseling, p less than 0.05. Both enhanced counseling and brief counseling had significant indirect effects on behavioral attitude, intention to use condoms, and condom use, p less than 0.001 and p less than 0.05, respectively. For the men and women with casual partners, both enhanced counseling and brief counseling signify Cantley influenced self-efficacy. In addition, enhanced counseling significantly influenced negative behavioral beliefs, and both counseling conditions indirectly predicted behavioral attitude, intention, and condom use, p less than 0.001. We also found a counterintuitive negative relationship between enhanced counseling membership and normative beliefs for the men and women with casual partners. Although Group ME membership had been assigned randomly, further examination indicated this relationship arose due to an even larger pre-existing negative relationship between enhanced counseling membership and normative beliefs at baseline. However, no other pre-existing relationships were significant. Therefore, in general, randomization was quite successful. However, this one pre-existing, significant relationship could not be fully eliminated at follow-up. On the basis of chance, one might expect that one or more relationships would be significant either positively or negatively before implementation of the interventions. Goodness of fit statistics of the path models are reported in the figures. Condom use item means by intervention condition. Means for the individual items comprising the composite indicator of condom use are shown in Table 4, Table 1. For each intervention condition for the three immediate, continued factor and measured condom use variables. Main partner, women. Main partner, men. Casual partners, men plus women. Baseline, N equals 683. Immediate follow-up, N equals 660. Baseline, N equals 551. Immediate follow-up, N equals 678. Baseline, N equals 556. Immediate follow-up, N equals 510. Mean, SD, loading 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 mean. Good. 6.5, 1.2, 0.77, 6.5, 0.77, 5.6, 0.71, 6 point, easy. 5.5, 5.9, 0.75. 2.2. Positive behavioral beliefs. Negative. Model Satora Bentler V2. 123. Brief interventions were small for women with main partners and for men and women with casual partners, but more robust for men with main partners. Discussion. This study provides a valuable opportunity to examine the utility of the IM as an effective underlying theoretical framework for HIV prevention programs. In collaboration with the CDC, a joint protocol was implemented across 5 regional sites with a high degree of fidelity. The entry criteria resulted in samples that were similar in risk behaviors, and the randomization process resulted in samples that were similar across intervention conditions. The participants were predominantly African American, 59%, or Latino, 16%, groups at the highest risk for HIV infection. Self-efficacy beliefs. Positive behavioral beliefs. Negative behavioral beliefs. Enhanced counseling. Intention to use condoms. 0.31 asterisk asterisk 0.40 0.30 asterisk. The follow-up rate was high, and there was a high degree of internal validity at each point in the study. However, only 44% of eligible individuals elected to participate in the study, raising possible concerns regarding the degree of external validity. Refusers and participants were similar in age, racial/ethnic background, and education, but relatively more study. Participants were women, had an STD at time of enrollment, and had previously been tested for HIV. Among individuals who completed the intervention, 71% were reassessed at the 3-month time frame. The components of the IM monitored at the time of recruitment generally predicted condom use 3 months later. Across both main and casual partners, the prediction of condom use intention from behavioral attitude, self-efficacy, and subjective social norms was validated by the structural equation models. In ADDIE, tie-in, despite the intervening intervention, condom use intention measured at baseline predicted actual condom use 3 months later. Overall, this represents strong support for the IM. Depending on participants' gender and type of partner, different components of the IM were relatively more or less important as determinants of condom use intentions. For main sexual partners, different components of the IM were associated with condom use intentions for men versus women. More specifically, although attitudes were the primary, self-efficacy beliefs, positive behavioral beliefs, negative behavioral beliefs, general normative beliefs, behavioral attitude, enhanced counseling. Determinants of intentions for both men and women. The relative importance of self-efficacy was much greater for women than it was for men. This is consistent with previous data on gender differences in sexual behavior, which suggests that issues of perceived personal power and control are especially salient for women seeking to have their male partners use condoms. Amaro and Raj, 2000. Finally, it is worth noting that while perceived norms had a small but significant influence on men's intentions to use condoms with their main partners, consistent with Sheeran, Abraham, and Orville, 1999, they had little influence on women's condom use intentions vis-a-vis their main partners. Primarily because of the sample size, we were not able to examine gender-specific predictors of the IM framework for condom use with casual partners. In general, for men and women with casual partners, attitude was again the primary determinant of condom use intentions, with self-efficacy also important. Once again, although normative influences were also significant, they played a relatively minor role as independent determinants of the intention to use condoms with a casual partner. Taken together, these data suggest that prevention programs should be tailored to emphasize different components of the IM for different subgroups of participants representing different combinations of gender and type of sexual partner. More specifically, while attitudes should always be targeted, it would appear that self-efficacy should also be addressed when intervening with women, and perhaps with men with respect to condom use with casual partners. It would appear that little will be accomplished by focusing on subjective norms. Note, however, that there was a shift following the intervention in the relative importance of attitudes, subjective norms, and self-efficacy. In particular, the strength of the associations between subjective norms and condom use intention increased from baseline to follow-up for both men and women with main partners, and the association between self-efficacy and intention increased for both genders with respect to casual partners. By contrast, the associations between behavioral attitude and condom use intention weakened for women with main partners and for both genders with casual partners. Both the enhanced counseling and brief counseling interventions focused on modifying specific components of behavioral attitude and self-efficacy, while the enhanced intervention additionally sought to modify subjective social norms. In sum, the first set of analyses not only provided strong support for the integrative model, but more important, provided strong evidence that the enhanced intervention significantly influenced condom use for both men and women with respect to both main and casual partners over and above their baseline intentions to use condoms. In contrast, the brief counseling intervention only influenced men's condom use with their main partners. The second set of analyses provides insight into these findings. More specifically, these analyses indicated that while enhanced counseling appears to have systematically changed self-efficacy and negative behavioral beliefs for both men and women with respect to both main and casual partners, and to have also influenced normative beliefs for both men and women with respect to casual partners, brief counseling's influence on these determinants of condom use was relatively weak and inconsistent. Our data indicate that interventions can influence the relative importance of the three major determinants of intention, which may help explain why brief counseling also had a small but significant effect on men's condom use behavior with their main partners. Although this study goes further than others in discerning more finely how interventions influence intentions and behavior, future evaluations must examine how the various components of an intervention modify the theoretical components believed to underlie behavior change. For example, although the 4-session enhanced counseling intervention was designed specifically to improve subjective social norms, self-efficacy, and behavioral attitude, and thus intention to use condoms, the intervention activities were not successful in impacting all components as desired. The IM indicates what factors must be changed in order to change HIV-related risk behavior, but how to change these components is not specified by the theory. For those interested in behavior change interventions, this is clearly the next big challenge. Acknowledgement: this paper was supported, in part, by Grant DA 01070-33 from the National Institute on Drug Abuse and Grant P30. Chapter 6. Theory of Reasoned Action. Theory of Planned Behavior and the Integrated Behavioral Model. Daniel E. Montano, Danuta Kasperzik. Key points. This chapter will describe the historical development of the Theory of Reasoned Action, TRA, Theory of Planned Behavior, TPB, and Integrated Behavioral Model, IBM. Describe and explain the main constructs in TRA, TPB, and IBM. Explain the similarity between these theories' key constructs and constructs from other behavioral theories. Describe measurement of the key constructs of TRA, TPB, and IBM. Explain how and why elicitation should be conducted to identify and select the content for the model construct measures and the behavior and population studied. Illustrate in a cross-cultural application how the IBM can be used as a framework to evaluate and explain why a behavior change intervention to increase condom use was not effective. Provide a cross-cultural example to understand circumcision behavior among adult males in Zimbabwe, and to use the findings to design messages for behavior change communications. Summarize strengths and limitations of TRA, TPB, and IBM. The theory of reasoned action, TRA, and the theory of planned behavior, TPB, focus on theoretical constructs concerned with individual motivational factors as determinants of the likelihood of performing specific behaviors. The TRA and TPB rest on an underlying assumption that the best predictor of a behavior is intentium, which is determined by attitudes toward and social normative perceptions regarding the behavior. The TPB, an extension of the TRA, includes an additional construct, perceived control over performance of the behavior. In recent years we, Fishbein, and colleagues, have expanded the TRA and TPB to include components from other major behavioral theories, and proposed an integrated behavioral model, IBM, also called the integrative model, IM. The TRA and TPB explain a large proportion of the variance in intention and predict a number of different health behaviors and intentions, including smoking, alcohol and substance use, health services utilization, exercise, sun protection, breastfeeding, HIV/sexually transmitted disease, STD, prevention, contraceptive use, mammography and other cancer screening, safety helmet use, nutritional choices, donating blood, and seatbelt use. Connor, Godin, Sheeran, and Germain, 2013, Fishbein and Agin, 2010, Gemmitt et al., 2011, Montano, Phillips, and Kasperzik, 2000, Montano, Thompson, Taylor, and Mollek, 1997, Wolf, Nordin, Brunn, Berglund, and Vale, 2011. Glanz, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, http://ebookscentral.herokas.com/libs/howard/detail.action?mark.id =$7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches. Glanz, C06.text V2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 96. 96 Chapter 6, Theory of Reasoned Action, Theory of Planned Behavior. Evidence comes from hundreds of studies summarized in meta-analyses and reviews. Alberakin, Johnson, Fishbein, and Muller-Leyla, 2001, Alberakin et al., 2003, 2005, Alberakin, Kumkale, and Johnson, 2004, Armitage and Connor, 2001, Downs and Hosenblas, 2005, Durantini, Alberakin, Mitchell, Earl, and Gillette, 2006, McEachin, Connor, Taylor, and Lawton, 2011. While the TRA/TPB have been criticized, based on whether correlational results can explain behaviors, Weinstein, 2007, many published interventions show that changing TRA or TPB constructs leads to subsequent changes in behaviors. Alberakin et al., 2003, 2005, Glasman and Alberakin, 2006, Gemmitt, 2012, Johnson, Scott Sheldon, Guido Medina, and Carey, 2011, Cam et al., 1998, Mosla, Bond, Lee, Kiger, and Campbell, 2013, Rhodes, Stein, Fishbein, Goldstein, and Rutheremboris, 2007, WebEnd. Sheeran, 2006. The TRA and TPB have been used to develop effective behavior change interventions. Fisher, Amico, Fisher, and Harman, 2008. Gastill, 2000, Hardiman et al., 2005, Gemmitt, 2012, Gemmitt et al., 2011, Mosla et al., 2013. Origins and historical development. The TRA was developed to better understand relationships between attitudes, intentions, and behaviors. Fishbein, 1967. Many previous studies of these relationships found relatively low correspondence between attitudes and behaviors, and some theorists proposed eliminating attitude as a factor underlying behavior. Abelson, 1972, Wicker, 1969. In work that led to development of the TRA, Fishbein distinguished between attitude toward an object and attitude toward a behavior with respect to that object. Most attitude theorists measured attitude toward an object, such as an attitude toward cancer, in trying to predict a behavior, example mammography. Fishbein demonstrated that attitude toward the behavior, attitude toward mammography, is a much better predictor of that behavior, obtaining mammography, than attitude toward the object, cancer, at which the behavior is directed. Fishbein and Agin. 1975. This is known as the principle of compatibility and was clearly described by Agin. 1985, 2012. Fishbein and Agin, 1975, 2010, Agin and Fishbein, 1980, defined underlying beliefs, behavioral and normative, intentions, and behaviors in their measurement. They showed that it is critical to have a high degree of correspondence between measures of attitude, norm, perceived control, intention, and behavior in terms of action. Example, go get, target, example, a mammogram, context, example, at the breast screening center, and time, example, in the next 12 months. A change in any of these factors results in a different behavior being explained. Low correspondence between model construct measures on any of these factors will result in low correlations between TRA/TPB variables. Agin, 2012, Fishbein and Agin, 2010. Operationalization of TRA constructs was developed from a long history of attitude measurement theory rooted in the concept that an attitude toward an object or an action is determined by expectations or beliefs concerning attributes of the object or action and evaluations of those attributes. This expectancy value conceptualization has been applied extensively in psychology in many areas, including learning theories, attitude theories, and decision-making theories. Edwards, 1954, Rosenberg, 1956, Rotter, 1954. In addition to the TRA and TPB, a few other behavioral theories and models are among Glanz, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, those most often used to investigate health behaviors, Glanz, Reimer, and Vishwanath, 2008, http://ebookcentral.perocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?doc.id =7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches Glanz, C06.text V2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 97. Theory of reasoned action and theory of planned behavior 97. Including social cognitive theory, see Chapter 9, the health belief model, see Chapter 5, the theory of subjective culture, Triandis, 1972, and the trans-theoretical model, see Chapter 7. Though many constructs in these theories are similar or complementary, more attention has been paid to their differences than their similarities. Weinstein, 1993. Thus, in 1992, the National Institute of Mental Health, NIMH, convened the primary architects of several theories to develop a theoretical framework to integrate their constructs. Consensus was reached concerning behavioral constructs likely to be important in predicting and changing behaviors. These constructs included intentions, skills, anticipated outcomes, positive and negative, social normative pressure, self-image, emotional reaction, self-efficacy, and environmental constraints. Fishbein and Agin, 2010. At the same time, we conducted a longitudinal study of HIV prevention behaviors in which we developed an integrated model that coincided substantially with recommendations from the NIMH Theorists Workshop, Kasperzak, Montano, and Fishbein, 1998. With increased interest in theory integration, Fishbein and colleagues described an integrative model focused primarily on determinants of behavioral intention. Fishbein, 2008, Fishbein and Agin, 2010, Fishbein and Capella, 2006. In addition, a 2002 Institute of Medicine (IOM) report, Speaking of Health, recommended an integrated model for using communication strategies to change health behaviors, IOM, 2002. Based on this work and on our experience over the past 2 decades, we propose use of the Integrated Behavioral Model, IBM, as a further extension of the TRA and TPB and describe it in this chapter. Theory of reasoned action and theory of planned behavior. An underlying premise of the TRA, figure 6.1, unshaded boxes, is that the most important determinant of behavior is behavioral intention. Direct determinants of individuals' behavioral intentions are their attitudes toward performing the behavior and subjective norms associated with the behavior. TPB adds perceived control, figure 6.1, shaded boxes, over the particular behavior, taking into account situations where one may not have complete volitional control over a behavior. Attitude is determined by individuals' beliefs about outcomes or attributes of performing the behavior, behavioral beliefs, weighted by evaluations of those outcomes or attributes. Thus, a person who holds strong beliefs that positively valued outcomes will result from performing the behavior in question will have a positive attitude toward the behavior. Conversely, a person who holds strong beliefs that negatively valued outcomes will result from the behavior will have a negative attitude. Similarly, a person's subjective norm is determined by his or her normative beliefs, that is, whether important referent individuals approve or disapprove of performing the behavior, weighted by the person's motivation to comply with those referents. A person who believes that certain referents think that he or she should perform a behavior and who is motivated to meet their expectations will hold a positive subjective norm. Conversely, a person who believes these referents think that he or she should not perform the behavior will have a negative subjective norm, and a person who is less motivated to comply with those referents will have a relatively bland, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, Neutral Subjective Norm. http://ebookcentral.hurocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?doc.id =$7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches glans, C06.text V2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 98. 98 Chapter 6, Theory of Reasoned Action, Theory of Planned Behavior. External variables, behavioral beliefs. Evaluations of behavioral outcomes. Attitude. Normative beliefs. Motivation to comply. Subjective norm behavior intention to perform the behavior. Perceived control. Control beliefs. Perceived power. Demographic variables. Attitudes toward targets. Personality traits. Other individual difference variables. Figure 6.1 Theory of Reasoned Action and Theory of Planned Behavior. Note, the unshaded boxes show the theory of reasoned action. The entire figure shows the theory of planned behavior. Central to the TRA is the assumption that the most important direct determinant of behavior is behavioral intention. Success of the theory in explaining behaviors depends on the degree to which a particular behavior is under volitional control, that is, individuals can exercise a large degree of control over the behavior. TRA components may be insufficient to predict behaviors in which volitional control is reduced. Thus, Adjin, 1991, added perceived behavioral control, shaded boxes in Figure 6.1, to the TRA to account for factors outside individual control that may affect intentions and behaviors, forming the theory of planned behavior, TPB. Perceived control is determined by control beliefs concerning the presence or absence of facilitators and barriers to behavioral performance, weighted by their perceived power, impact of each control factor to facilitate or inhibit the behavior. Although this may have a superficial resemblance to the HBM's concepts of barriers and facilitators, barriers and facilitators as they are defined in the HBM are more akin to the outcome expectations of the behavioral beliefs described above. Adjin's inclusion of perceived control was, in part, based on the idea that behavioral performance is determined jointly by motivation, intention, and ability, behavioral control. A person's perception of control over behavioral performance, together with intention, is expected to have a direct effect on behavior, particularly when perceived control is an accurate assessment of actual control over the behavior and when volitional control is not high. The effect of perceived control declines, and intention is a sufficient behavioral predictor in situations in which volitional control over the behavior is high. Madden, Ellen, and Adjin, 1992. Thus, similar to Triantis's 1980 conceptualization of facilitating conditions, perceived control is expected to moderate the effect of intention on behavior. However, this interaction Hypothesis has received very little empirical support. Fishbein and Agin, 2010. Glands, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, http://ebookcentral.perocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?mark.id =7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches glands, C06.text V2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 99. Theory of reasoned action and theory of planned behavior 99. The TPB also postulates that perceived control is an independent determinant of behavioral intention, along with attitude toward the behavior and subjective norm. Holding attitude and subjective norm constant, a person's perception of the ease or difficulty of behavioral performance will affect behavioral intention. Relative weights of these three factors in determining intentions should vary for different behaviors and populations. Few studies have operationalized perceived control using the underlying measures of control beliefs and perceived power. Instead, researchers have mostly used the direct measure of perceived control, Agin, 2002. Most recently, Fishbein and Agin, 2010, have argued that perceived behavioral control and self-efficacy, as defined by Bandura, 1997, are essentially the same theoretical construct. The TRA and TPB assume a causal chain that links behavioral beliefs, normative beliefs, and control beliefs to behavioral intentions and behaviors via attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived control. One of the major strengths of the TRA/TPB approach is that hypothesized causal relationships among model components are clearly specified, as are their measurement and computation. Leakley and Hennessy, 2012, Fishbein and Agin, 2010, Hennessy, Leakley, and Fishbein, 2012. Other factors, including demographic and environmental characteristics, are assumed to operate through model constructs and are not thought to independently contribute to explain the likelihood of performing a behavior. Measures of TRA and TPB constructs. TRA and TPB measures can use either 5 or 7-point scales. A person's behavioral beliefs about the likelihood that performance of the behavior will result in certain outcomes are measured on bipolar unlikely, likely, or agree scales. Evaluations of each outcome are measured on bipolar good-I-bad scales. For example, one outcome of my quitting smoking may be that this will cause me to gain weight. A person's behavioral belief about this outcome is measured by having the individual rate the likelihood that my quitting smoking will cause me to gain weight. The person's evaluation of this outcome is measured by having the individual rate the degree to which my gaining weight is good versus bad. Behavioral belief and evaluation ratings are scored from -3 to +3, capturing the psychology of double negatives, where a belief that a behavior will not result in a negative outcome contributes positively to the person's attitude. An indirect measure of the person's attitude toward performing the behavior is computed by first multiplying a behavioral belief concerning each outcome by the corresponding outcome evaluation rating, and summing the product scores across all outcomes of the behavior. For example, a person may believe that quitting smoking is very unlikely to result in gaining weight, belief scored as -3, and may evaluate gaining weight as very bad, evaluation scored as -3, resulting in a belief times evaluation product score of +9. Thus, the strong belief that performing the behavior will not result in, will avoid, a negatively valued outcome contributes just as positively to the person's attitude as would a strong belief that the action will result, +3, in a positively valued, +3, outcome, product equals +9. Conversely, a strong belief that the behavior will not result, -3, in a positively valued outcome, +3, contributes negatively, product equals -9, to the person's attitude, because performance of the behavior will not achieve a highly valued outcome. In the quitting smoking example, beliefs and evaluations of all salient outcomes of this behavior enter into the computation of an indirect measure of the person's attitude. Glands, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, http://ebookcentral.perocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?mark.id =7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches glands, C06.text V2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m., page 100. 100, Chapter 6, Theory of Reasoned Action, Theory of Planned Behavior. Similarly, a person's normative beliefs about whether each referent thinks he or she should perform the behavior are measured on bipolar scales scored -3 to +3. The person's motivation to comply with each referent is measured on unipolar scales scored 1 to 7. For example, one potential referent with regard to quitting smoking might be a person's best friend. The normative belief concerning the best friend is measured by asking the individual to rate the degree to which he or she believes the best friend thinks the individual should versus should not quit smoking. Motivation to comply is measured by rating agreement versus disagreement with the statement, generally, I want to do what my best friend thinks I should do. An indirect measure of the person's subjective norm is computed by multiplying the individual's normative belief about each referent by the individual's motivation to comply with that referent, and then summing the product scores across all referents. Applications of TPB suggest that control beliefs regarding each factor should be measured on a bipolar likelihood of occurrence scale scored -3 to +3. Perceived power of each factor is measured on a bipolar easy difficult scale, Adjin, 1991, 2006. For example, a person may identify restaurant smoking restrictions as a factor affecting his or her perceived behavioral control over quitting smoking. A control belief about this factor is measured by having the individual rate his or her likelihood of encountering a restaurant smoking restriction. Perceived power is measured by rating the individual's perception of the effect of restaurant smoking restrictions in making it easy versus difficult to quit smoking. These ratings are obtained for all factors identified as facilitating or impeding the behavior. An indirect measure of a person's perceived behavioral control is computed by multiplying each control belief by its corresponding perceived power rating and summing the product scores across all control factors, Adjin, 2006. In addition to indirect measures computed from behavioral, normative, and control beliefs, it is important to obtain a direct measure of each model component. Table 6.1 summarizes the direct and indirect measures of attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control. A direct measure of attitude toward performing the behavior is obtained using semantic differential scale items such as good, bad, and pleasant, unpleasant, and summing them. A direct measure of subjective norm uses a single item asking the person to rate most people important to me think I should perform the behavior. Ratings are made on bipolar unlikely, likely, or agree, disagree scales. The direct measure of perceived behavioral control uses semantic differential scale items such as under my control, not under my control, and easy, difficult. Direct measures are important for two reasons. First, direct measures are usually more strongly associated with intentions and behaviors than indirect measures. The associations between the direct measures and behavioral intention are used to indicate the relative importance of attitude, subjective norm, and perceived control in explaining or predicting a given behavior. It is important to demonstrate these associations before analyzing indirect measures. Second, indirect measures should be associated strongly with direct measures to ensure that appropriate beliefs were included in the indirect measures and that composite beliefs. Glanz, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, http://ebookscentral.herokas.com/libs/howard/detail.action?mark.id =$7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches. Glanz, C06.text v2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m., page 101. Theory of Reasoned Action and Theory of Planned Behavior 101. Table 6.1 TRA, TPB, NIBM constructs and definitions. Construct definition measure. Behavioral intention, perceived likelihood of perform ing, the behavior bipolar unlikely likely scale, scored 3 to +3. Attitude experiential attitude, effect, direct measure overall effective evaluation of the behavior semantic differential scales, for example, pleasant unpleasant, enjoyable unenjoyable indirect measure. Behavioral belief that behavioral performance is associated with certain positive or negative feelings. Bipolar unlikely likely scale, scored 3 to +3. Instrumental attitude. Direct measure overall evaluation of the behavior semantic differential scales, for example, good bad, wise foolish indirect measure. Behavioral belief that behavioral performance is associated with certain attributes or outcomes. Bipolar unlikely likely scale, scored 3 to +3. Evaluation value attached to a behavioral outcome or attribute bipolar bad good scale, scored 3 to +3. Perceived subjective, injunctive, norm direct measure belief about whether most PEO/PLE approve or disapprove of the behavior. Bipolar disagree-agree scale, scored 3 to +3. Indirect measure. Normative belief about whether each refer and approves or disapproves of the behavior. Bipolar disagree-agree scale, scored 3 to +3. Motivation to comply, motivation to do what each referent thinks, unipolar unlikely likely scale, scored 1 to 7. Descriptive norm. Direct measure belief about whether most people perform the behavior, bipolar disagree-agree scale, scored 3 to +3. Indirect measure. Normative belief about whether each referent performs the behavior, bipolar disagree-agree scale, scored 3 to +3. Continued. Glanz, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central, http://ebookcentral.perocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?doc ID = 7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches. Glanz, C06.text v2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 102. 102 Chapter 6, Theory of Reasoned Action, Theory of Planned Behavior. Table 6.1, continued. Construct definition measure personal perceived behavioral control agency direct measure overall measure perceived control over the behavior semantic differential scales. For example, under my control, not under my control, easy difficult indirect measure control belief perceived likelihood of occurrence of each facilitating or constraining condition. Unlikely likely scale, scored 3 to +3 or 1 to 7. Perceived power perceived effect of each can be tie in making behavioral performance difficult or easy. Bipolar difficult easy scale, scored 3 to +3. Self-efficacy direct measure overall measure of ability to perform behavior certain I could not, certain I could scale for overall behavior, scored 3 to +3 or 1 to 7. Indirect measure self-efficacy belief perceived ability to overcome each facilitating or constraining condition certain I could not, certain I could scale, scored 3 to +3 or 1 to 7. Note, TRA and TPB constructs are shaded. Behavioral, normative, and control are adequate measures of the respective TRA/TPB constructs. Once this is demonstrated, indirect measures are of most interest for the development of communication-based interventions. Behavioral, normative, and control beliefs help us understand what drives behaviors and provide foci for intervention messaging using multi-PLE communication modes or channels. Fishbein and Capella, 2006. Von Hachten, Fishbein, Kasperzik, and Montano, 2001. Identification of the construct that is most closely related to behavioral intention and also the process of deciding which behavioral, normative, and control beliefs should be used to focus intervention messages are illustrated in the theory application example later in the chapter. Research designs and analytic approaches to testing the TRA/TPB. A prospective study design is recommended to discern relationships between constructs with attitude, subjective norm, perceived control, and intention measured at one time point and behavior measured following a time interval. Cross-sectional studies are often used to test the TRA/TPB, but may provide poor prediction and understanding of previous behavior because the time order of motivations and behavior cannot be discerned. Regression and structural equation analytic methods are usually used to test relationships in the TRA/TPB. While these analyses are often used in cross-sectional studies, they are best used in longitudinal, prospective study designs to assess causal relationships. Bleakley and Hennessy, 2012. Bryan, Schmiga, and Broadus, 2007, Rhodes et al., 2007. Relative weights of model constructs are determined. Glanz, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central. http://ebookcentral.perocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?doc ID = 7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches. Glanz, C06.text v2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 103. Theory of Reasoned Action and Theory of Planned Behavior 103. empirically for each behavior and population under investigation. These weights provide guidance as to which constructs are most important to target for behavior change efforts. Some behaviors are entirely under attitudinal control, Alberaken et al., 2003, whereas others are under normative control, Alberaken et al., 2004, Durantini et al., 2006, or perceived control, Alberaken et al., 2005. For example, in a study of adults over age 40, colonoscopy intentions were found to be almost completely under normative control, whereas exercise intentions were influenced by both attitudes and perceived control, Fishbein and Capella, 2006. Similarly, a behavior may be under attitudinal control in one population, but under normative control in another population. Our research found that condom use with a main partner is primarily under normative control for female injecting drug users, but is influenced by attitude, norm, and perceived control for females who do not inject drugs, Kensky, Appleyard, von Haeften. Kaspersky and Fishbein, 2001, von Haeften and Kensky, 2001. This obviously has implications for message development for communication campaigns. It is a waste of resources to target messages based on attitudes to change behavior when a behavior is mostly under normative control. Once the significant constructs are identified, analyses of specific beliefs underlying those constructs can determine which specific behavioral, normative, or control beliefs are most strongly associated with intention and behavior, providing empirically identified targets for intervention efforts. See the research examples later in the chapter. Evidence to support the TRA/TPB. The main theory of reasoned action has often led to the misrepresentation that the focus of this approach is purely on rational behavior, St. Lawrence and Fortenberry, 2007. This is far from correct. A fundamental assumption of the TRA is that individuals are rational actors who process information, and that underlying reasons determine their motivation to perform a behavior. These reasons, made up of a person's behavioral, normative, and control beliefs, determine his or her attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived control, regardless of whether those beliefs are rational, logical, or correct by some objective standard. See Fishbein and Agin, 2010, for discussion of this aspect of the TRA/TPB. A strength of the TRA/TPB is that their approach provides a framework for discerning and understanding the reasons or beliefs that motivate a behavior of interest for each particular population of interest. Recently, the TPB was used successfully to design an intervention applied among severely mentally ill HIV-negative and HIV-positive patients to increase their condom use. One can certainly argue that many mentally ill individuals are not rational, yet this intervention illustrates that when their own reasons for their behaviors were discerned and used in counseling messages to encourage condom use, these individuals made reasoned decisions and changed their behaviors. Blank and Hennessy, 2012. The TRA and TPB do not specify particular beliefs about behavioral outcomes, normative reference, or control beliefs that should be measured. Relevant behavioral outcomes, reference, and control beliefs should be discerned for each group and behavior and will likely be different for different populations and behaviors. Then interventions can be designed to target and change these beliefs or the value placed on them, thereby affecting attitude, subjective norm, or perceived control and leading to changes in intentions and behaviors. Glanz, Karen. Health Behavior, Theory, Research, and Practice, John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated, 2015. ProQuest eBook Central. http://ebookcentral.perocast.com/lib/howard/detail.action?mark.id =$7103893. Created from Howard on January 29, 2023, 5:44 and 14 seconds. Copyright 2015. John Wiley & Sons, Incorporated. All rights reserved. Trim size, 7 inches x 9.25 inches Glanz, C06.text V2, June 19, 2015, 10:45 a.m. page 104. 104 Chapter 6, Theory of Reasoned Action, Theory of Planned Behavior. An integrated behavioral model. As noted previously, we recommend use of an integrated behavioral model that includes constructs from the TRA. HTT. For intervention effort. Approach provides a framework for discerning An integrated behavioral model. As noted previously, we recommend use of an integrated behavioral model that includes